This is a video I've been planning for quite some time, and I'm glad that I waited on it. This is going to be the first installment of the Rise of the Carnal, and this is just basically where we recap recent events the last week and a half, even up to a month. I'm not sure how often I'm going to be doing this, but I'm glad I waited for this particular segment because there were several stories that caught my eye. And they're all linked into this huge meta-narrative about what is going on in society today. And this is to reinforce to you as the listener that, it's okay to be carnal. It's okay to have those feelings of revulsion and disgust about the things that are happening around you. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. And given the last couple of events that have unfolded, we're being entirely vindicated. Let's go to the first story. New York celebrates legalizing abortion until birth. Yes, we have legalized abortion until birth. The full 9 months, the child can be in there, just chilling, having a good time, and then decides, the day before, don't want the baby for whatever reason, that baby can be legally and technically terminated. Cuomo called it a historic victory for New Yorkers and for our progressive values. I'd like to know how those progressive values are working out for you. It doesn't seem like they're going your way. So, there's a lot wrong with this. And they've been building up to this. This is not coming out of left field. This is something that they have been actively building up to. And we'll show that a little bit later in the video. Under the Reproductive Health Act, non-doctors are now allowed to conduct abortions, and the procedure could be done until the mother's due date if the woman's health is endangered or if the fetus is not viable. Okay, so for those of you who think this is nuanced, it actually isn't. There are plenty of women who would actively kill their child in the womb if they knew that they could get the abortion anyway. That's who this is protecting. This is women who pass what you might call the mark of decency, the legally prescribed limit of, after this point you will give birth to the child no matter what. And this is basically to hold women accountable to not kill their children. The previous law only allowed abortions until after 24 weeks of pregnancy if a woman's life was at risk, which is precisely the way that it should be anyway. So this happened yesterday. This happened over the last 24 hours as of recording. So yeah. And this is something that I'm glad I waited on to figure out which way it would go, because it really does connect with the rest of the articles here. But just to recap it for a little bit, they've been at this for a very long time, and I've just noticed like a constant erosion at our humanity, just a constant picking away of the instinctive feelings of revulsion and disgust that you should have for humans, for family, for your brothers, for your sisters, for your loved ones, anything that is good and for the community at large. Anything that's even slightly religious is being viciously attacked. Which kind of goes over to the next story. Ben Shapiro loses third advertiser over baby Hitler remarks. Now, we'll go over the advertisers, but this is basically a comment that Ben Shapiro made at a pro-life rally, the March for Life rally, where he says, "No pro-life person would kill baby Hitler. Baby Hitler was a baby." That's demonstrably true. Like, babies do nothing wrong. Sure, you might think that they're inconvenient, but they're innocent. They can't do anything wrong. Now, Saucy is the third company to pull its ads from Shapiro's podcast. Quip was the first to jump off, followed by a meditation app called Calm. Yeah, those sound really, really, really upright pillars of the community right there. Wine, toothbrushes, and meditation. Yeah, I'm sure Ben is crying over the loss of these advertisers. I'm sure he's very hurt and offended. I'm not sure he'll recover. And it's just like we're not paying attention to this, to all this noise. Like, most of us don't really give a damn about what these advertisers do or say. It's just more money out of Ben Shapiro's pocket. While that might hurt the movement per se, it's not culturally significant. It's that these advertisers are trying to be cultural powers, and they're not. And which kind of makes the attempt a little bit hilarious. But it's, as I said, this is part of a much larger trend, as we see here. After birth abortion, why should the baby live? This is an actual study that was conducted in Australia in 2000. In 2011 is when it was received, revised in 2012, accepted in 2012, and first published in February of 2012. Now, you might argue, okay, so it's been around since 2012, why haven't I heard about it since? Why is it news now? The reason why it's relevant now is because of these statistics. It has, since 2012, been picked up by 9 news outlets, blogged by 13, tweeted 2,234 times, seen on 289 Facebook pages, referenced in 2 Wikipedia pages, mentioned in 60 Google Plus posts, had 15 videos. So this thing is starting to make its rounds. This is actually starting to make its way into the social consciousness as of recently. And I saw this maybe 6 or 7 days ago, when it was actually shared by either the Liberals or Sargon of Akkad, is when I saw this featured article. So this is making its rounds, and here's the abstract. Abortion is largely accepted even for reasons that do not have anything to do with the fetus's health. This is true. And that's a problem, but it's still true. And he continues, by showing that 1, both fetuses and newborns do not have the same moral status as actual persons. Both fetuses and newborns do not have the same moral status as actual persons. And 2, the fact that both are potential persons is morally irrelevant. And 3, adoption is not always in the best interest of actual people. Yes, because the only actual people who matter are those who have to go through the process. You slimy little shit. The authors will argue that what we call, quote, after birth abortion, quotations, or no, it's a parentheses, killing a newborn, should be permissible in all cases where abortion is, including cases where the newborn is not disabled. And that is the absolute state of philosophy today. Let's make after-birth abortion completely legal, because philosophically there is absolutely zero reason to not take that next step. Now, if you're on the right wing or the conservative side of things, you already understood this. You already understood that there was no logical reason, if abortion is legal, to not jump ahead and say, why not everyone else? Or why not a baby? Why not the those who are invalid? Why not those who are, brain dead and might wake up from a coma? We knew this was the next step. We knew that was what was coming. But it doesn't stop there. There are more relevant social paradigms at play here, as we see in this article from none other than Vox. Our favorite thing, right? Vox, our favorite thing. Toxic masculinity is under attack. That's fine. Of course you'd say that. Of course you'd say that. Of course you would absolutely say that there's nothing wrong with attacking masculinity. If you Google masculinity right now, frickin' speak, you'd be forgiven for thinking that men are engaged in an epic battle over our very right to exist. Masculinity isn't a sickness, the Wall Street Journal intones. Yeah, kind of ashamed they had to say that. It's really embarrassing that we had to speak out and say that men have a right to exist. But it gets even more interesting, and they admit that they're part of the problem, sort of. Who's behind this dubious attack on masculinity? It was a bit of a 1-2 punch, actually. Earlier this month, the American Psychological Association released new guidelines for working with men that highlighted a substantial body of research pointing to some of the harmful effects that are the constricted enculturation of quote-unquote traditional masculinity. It's called being a man. It's called being attractive. It's called being assertive. It might even be called wolf whistling. I'll have to edit that out. Wolf whistling. It's called wolf whistling, guys. And, actually asking a girl on a date. Having a job. All of the things that make men attractive to women. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. Have on men and the people around us. Quote, traits of so-called traditional masculinity, like suppressing emotions and masking distress, often start early in life and have been linked to less willingness by boys and men to seek help, more risk-taking, and aggression. Okay, so basically they have this thing called testosterone, which actually deadens the pain. It actually, makes you more resilient to stress. It takes a lot more to make you anxious. It's even more, it makes you ready for war. That's what testosterone does. And it increases your threshold for stress. That's what testosterone does. It continues, possibly harming themselves and those with whom they interact, which is something the APA tweeted as part of the guideline announcement. You announced this on a tweet? Good God, I thought you were a professional organization. Anyways, the new APA guidelines, which are designed for therapists working with men, suggest that clinicians be aware of their own gender bias so as to avoid misdiagnosis of male clients. Be aware of the way racism, homophobia, and transphobia shape male identity, as well as stereotypes about marginalized men. And get out the message that to men that, quote, they're adaptable, emotional, and capable of engaging fully outside of rigid norms, end quote. Yeah, you're telling men that they can change into something other than men, which is technically true. Men can behave in whatever way they choose to fashion. That doesn't mean that it's more healthy than acting like a man, but we'll continue on that later. In short, the APA suggests that treating male clients will be more impactful if therapists factor in documented risk factors associated with quote-unquote traditional masculinity, such as not seeking help, struggling with vulnerability in their treatment, and broadly remember to factor in masculinity as a gender identity when assessing the needs of their male clients. Oh my goodness, there's so much wrong there. That clinicians have to be aware of their own gender bias to avoid misdiagnosis of male clients. And to be aware of the way that racism, homophobia, and transphobia shape male identity. So all men, hashtag all men, literally that is what they're saying, just hashtag all men. And it is an evil thing for a man to be assertive and traditional and risk-taking and, be able to take all of those hard stresses of life that make them capable of, engaging in sewer work, waste management, pole climbing, all of the things that make society function and run very smoothly. It would be very easy for the power grid to go out on any given day. Men are out there troubleshooting, we're out there fixing things, we're making sure that everything is put together. This is being actively vilified in our media and in the world around us. And in case you had any misgivings about where things are going, or if it's just you or that you're just too crazy, let's remember something that happened way earlier, either this week or a week and a half ago. Disrespectful Google employees melt down over the word family. Google employees melted down after the word family was used in a company presentation, documents obtained by the Daily Caller news show. Employees were upset that the word was used in a way that links families with children, which they argued was homophobic. A Google vice president acknowledged the word family has sparked concerns about inclusivity. A Google executive sparked a fierce backlash from employees by using the word family in a weekly company-wide presentation, according to internal documents obtained by Daily Caller. Many Google employees became angry that the term was used while discussing a product aimed at children. Aimed at children. Because it implied that families have children. Well, if families don't have children, they're in the orphanage. If they're in the orphanage, they're kind of up a creek and you don't give a damn about children, but we'll get to that later. The documents show. The backlash grew large enough that the Google vice president addressed the controversy and solicited feedback on how the company could become more inclusive. Let me give you a clue. You can't be inclusive to people who want families and can't have them. There's no way. There is no way to be more inclusive to people who want families and cannot have them. They have a problem, and they're incapable of literally fixing that problem. So there is, by default, nothing you can do to be more inclusive. If someone gets triggered by the word family, it is their personal problem, and there's nothing you can do to fix that. But that's where we're at. New York has legalized abortion up into 9 months. Ben Shapiro is apparently losing advertisers, 3 of them, mind you, for saying that you can't kill baby Hitler, you can't kill babies. We have been brought back a publication that was announced to promote after, quote-unquote, after-birth abortion, while at the same time, we have toxic masculinity being broadcasted and a Gillette ad that basically told men it's not okay to be men. And the APA, the Associated Psychologists Association, decides to double down on that and say that being a man is toxic, problematic, and just downright evil. Don't do it. And all men are, by the way, racists, homophobic, and transphobes. All of them. All men, no holds barred. Follow that up with the fact that Google and its employees, the echo chamber that is Google, that we should not be worried about censoring our content or, monitoring the internet, changing up our search patterns, monitoring our purchases. If you use Google Maps, they know where you travel. These people that we should not absolutely be worried about were triggered by the word family. Let that sink in. They are triggered. These people who do all of this shit for you in your daily life, the things that you go about doing without even giving half a thought, they are triggered by the word family. and I'm sorry, but there was a time. I think we call it the 90s. I think we call this time the 90s. I'm pretty sure we call this the 90s, where the Democrats, if they had stayed on their populist message, if they had not forsaken the working class, if they had a shred of humanity in them, they could have maintained their grip on power in the population, maintained the working class, maintained the minority vote, which is largely conservative, by the way. Minorities only vote for the Democrats because it's a racial demographic thing, but the people themselves are staunchly conservative. These people know that they only vote for Democrats because they get brownie points from them. But the minorities themselves, socially, are quite conservative. If they had stayed there, if they had stayed there, they would have a stranglehold on politics. We couldn't, they would be trouncing us. But because they have done all of this, and because they cannot seem to help themselves, because they actually cannot be, they can't help but be the degenerate shits that they are, they're losing. The carnality is winning out in regular human beings. It now no longer matters whether you're center left or center right. If you are center, if you are a decent human being, if you are someone who loves your family, loves your wife, loves your children, loves your husband, loves your mom, loves your parents, loves if you have a sense of community, if you have something outside of the political ethos as your foundation for morality and activism, or if you have, shoot, if you don't want, even if you're not politically active at all, if you have any shred of humanity or love for what is good and decent in your life, the, the Democrats are losing. They're going to lose you because they can no longer associate with humans. They can no longer claim to care, that they care about what you care about as a human being on a very basic carnal level. And I would have just said a couple of days ago, take my word for it. But you know what? I don't have to do that anymore because of this kid. This kid is a legend because when they were at the March for Life rally, and you know the story. You know the story. They were at the March for Life rally, and this hack came up to them beating on his drum, and all the kid did was wear a MAGA hat and smile back at him and not move an inch. And that is what represents everything that is happening to the Democrats right now. They are walking up to our faces and saying, we're gonna be here, we're going to assert ourselves, and all we have to do is be this kid. Wear that MAGA hat with pride and just look at them with that smirk that they hate so much. And you know what? They said it's demeaning, that it's the smugness of white privilege. You know what? I wouldn't call it white privilege, but they're right to feel that way. They should be threatened by this, because this is humanity showing out. That this is just a raw, carnal, visceral reaction to all of the hedonism, the stupidity, and the weakness of the left. And we're done. We are absolutely, positively done. And the carnality of man is just rising up and saying, we've had enough. We have had enough of the stupid. We've had enough of the degenerate. We've had enough of being told that we can't love ourselves and our family. And this is what I want you to take away. We're actually winning. We are actually winning. And for those of you who haven't heard the news yet, this kid has a lawyer, and they are kicking ass and taking names. This lawyer that they've got is top notch. He is tweeting out, telling celebrities that they have to either redact or they will get sued in court. USA Today is in quite a pickle, because they actually published libel. They published something that was not factually true. Tim Pool did a great video on this. I would suggest finding him and learning all the details on that. But we're actually fighting back, and we are winning. And the reason that we're winning is because the left has forgotten that they have to appeal to human beings. And as a wise book once said, "By their fruits ye shall know them."